Have you ever thought about how a city's buildings can tell a story? Well, imagine a city where every single building is like a scar, or maybe a trophy, or even a bold declaration of power. That's Narva, Estonia for you. It's right on the edge of Russia, and its architecture, it's not just stone and mortar. No, it's more like a living history book of conflict, empires, and sheer survival. This quote from our source material really just nails it. We're not just looking at pretty buildings here. We're looking at a city that has been constantly wiped clean and then rewritten over and over again. It's this incredible cycle of destruction and reinvention that's literally etched in stone. And wow, this image just says it all, doesn't it? On the left, you've got Herman Castle in Estonia. And right across the river, on the right, that's Ivangorod Fortress in Russia. For centuries, these two massive stone giants have been locked in a staring contest. It is, without a doubt, one of the most dramatic border scenes anywhere in Europe. A permanent, physical symbol of the line drawn between two very different worlds. So let's really dig into this idea of architecture as a living history book. Every major power that ever controlled Narva, we're talking German crusaders, Swedish kings, Soviet commissars, they all left their mark. And not just in history books or with laws, but in the actual physical fabric of the city. But here's the thing you have to understand about Narva's story. It's not some smooth, continuous tale. It's layered, it's broken, and it's often been violently interrupted. Every layer you see, that medieval stone, the fancy Baroque plaster, the gritty industrial brick, and that stark Soviet concrete, each one represents a completely different, often clashing chapter in its incredible history. So, how did this all even begin? Well, Narva didn't just pop up as some grand city. It started out as a simple little trading post, which then grew into a seriously tough military stronghold. And then, almost out of nowhere, it blossomed into a genuine European gem. This timeline really shows you how fast that change happened. It all kicks off in the 13th century, when the Livonian order builds Herman Castle for one reason: defense. A couple of centuries later, the powerful Hanseatic League comes in and turns it into a buzzing hub for trade. But the real game changer? That happens in the 17th century, when the Swedish Empire takes over, and Narva really truly hits its stride. And what a stride it was. This was Narva's golden age, no question. The Swedes brought in that beautiful Baroque architecture, completely transforming the city with a sense of order and elegance. Just picture it. Wide, carefully planned streets, gorgeous, colorful buildings, and a magnificent town hall right in the center. For a while there, Narva was known as one of the most beautiful cities in the entire Baltic region, a true jewel. But as we all know, empires shift, and skylines change right along with them. After its Swedish era, Narva became part of the Russian Empire. And with the 19th century came a new force, one that would change the city more than any army ever could: the Industrial Revolution. And just like that, everything changed. The delicate elegance of the Baroque period was suddenly dwarfed by the raw, loud power of industry. Ornate palaces and churches weren't the focus anymore. The new architecture was all about one thing: production. It was about efficiency and a totally new kind of workforce. I mean, just look at the sheer scale of this. The Kreenholm Manufacturing Company wasn't just another factory. It was its own self-contained universe, a city within a city. It had these massive red brick halls, its own apartment blocks for workers, schools for their kids, and even its own hospital. For the very first time, the architecture of Narva wasn't being shaped by nobles or soldiers, but by industry and the working class. And then came the greatest catastrophe in Narva's long, long history. The architectural story we've been following comes to a sudden, violent, and almost total end during World War II. In 1944, a series of heavy bombing raids essentially erased the city from the map. The damage was just catastrophic, 98%. Let that number sink in for a second. Almost every single building in the historic center, the medieval walls, the old Hanseatic houses, those beautiful Baroque churches, all of it destroyed. It's really hard to grasp how final this was. That entire living history book, built up over 700 years, was just turned into rubble and ash. The old Narva, it just wasn't there anymore. So after the war, under Soviet rule, this huge decision was made.
Instead of trying to painstakingly put the old city back together, the plan was to clear away the ruins and build a brand new one, totally from scratch. A city built not on history, but on ideology. So this is the vision that replaced that old world. Uniformity and function were the new rules. Huge, prefabricated concrete apartment blocks were thrown up quickly to house a completely new population. Wide avenues were designed specifically for military parades. The whole point was to build a new society from the ground up, where speed, control, and this new kind of forced equality mattered way more than a past they wanted to forget. This table really makes that transformation crystal clear. Historic Narva was all about defense and commerce, using natural materials like stone and wood to create unique decorative buildings. Soviet Narva, on the other hand, was built for housing and control, using concrete panels to create uniform, functional structures. It was a complete philosophical reset of what a city should even be. All right, let's jump to the present day and see how this all comes together. Modern Narva is this totally fascinating city of contrasts, where all these different, clashing layers of history are now sitting right next to each other. And what you see now is a city that's finally learning to embrace its entire complicated story. That timeless medieval castle is still standing guard, looking out over rows of Soviet-era apartment blocks. The giant industrial ruins of Kreenholm are now being preserved as architectural treasures. And all these cool modern cultural spaces are popping up, kind of blending it all together. The city is telling its story not by erasing its past, but by finally accepting all of it. And that really brings us to a final thought. Narva is such a powerful reminder that cities aren't static things. They are constantly being molded by the forces of their time. It kind of makes you wonder, right? As we build and rebuild our own towns and cities, what story will our architecture tell future generations about us?